Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a video on hard work. So you may have seen videos in the past on things like how close should you train to failure and how do you know if you're actually doing a good program, are you getting results, are you working hard enough, that sort of thing. So we're going to address that today, and I'm going to give you guys a basic guide to know if you're working hard. And I'm also going to put on your radar some poor indicators of hard work or intensity that you should keep in mind, because especially if you're a beginner or a novice, you might be currently thinking that those indicators are actually telling you you're working hard. But I'm going to explain to you guys today why that may not be the case, but we'll get to that later. First, I'd just like to start by saying this. Okay, work and hard work are not in human nature naturally, okay? We just don't desire it. Our fallen hearts desire luxury and leisure and sitting around and being comfortable. That is the natural state of man. So you'd rather be in bed, warm under blankets, snuggling kittens and puppies, okay, having a day off. But hard work is a sacrifice that requires some degree of discipline in order to make a present sacrifice for your future self, right? Give you the ability to survive and be better off in the future. So because hard work is not in the natural state of man, but instead we want to just be comfortable and lazy, hard work is something you got to get used to. And if you're watching this video, probably work for a living, you know what that's like, at least in some sense, right? You got to go to work, get the paycheck, pay the bills, survive, and at least have somewhat of a future ahead of you. So you sacrifice in the present for the sake of the future. You're already used to that hard work. So I say this, if you're not into exercise or exercise has been a chore for you in the past, well, think of it as just something you need to do. It's like brushing your teeth. It's like going to work. It's like changing your bed, okay? It's just something you got to do in order to get the results you want. You can't bypass it, okay? You can't bypass hard work with regards to exercise by taking a better supplement or by getting a better program necessarily. There's some truth to that you can, but ultimately it comes down to the effort that you're putting in, the consistency of that effort, and the overall amount of time that you've been putting in that effort. Okay, so there's no magic pill, no magic supplement. You actually have to put in the work yourself. So, now that that little preface is out of the way, that hard work is something you got to get used to, let's get into it. So what does hard work look like? All right, so I'm going to say this. Hard work is something that you're going to need to measure within the context of exercise, because if you aren't measuring how hard you're working, you really don't have a point of reference to plan your next session, let alone your next month of training or your next year of training. And if you're not measuring how hard you're working, it's going to be very difficult to create goals that are attainable and meet them. Okay, so you need to measure how hard you're working. There's a saying, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. And that's absolutely true. So what are some ways that you can measure hard work? Well, a couple of ways you can measure the work that you're doing and whether or not it's hard is through reps in reserve, also called RPE. It's the same exact thing. I just prefer to use the idea of reps in reserve. It's very basic. Essentially, if you're doing a deadlift, a bench, a squat, the number of reps in reserve means if you absolutely pushed yourself all out to the limit, that's the number of reps you could have done, which you did not. So if you did 8 reps with 2 in reserve, that means you could have done it 10 maximally all out one time on the same day. That's what that means. Now RPE is just backwards, so RPE 8, right? RPE 8 rather than RIR2 means that you could have done 2 more. So it's essentially the same thing, just flipped around. And then there's tonnage. Tonnage basically is the total mechanical work compounded together. You times the reps times the sets times the weight, and that number basically is telling you, like, okay, how much mechanical work am I doing from a big picture standpoint? And it's a decent concept. It works pretty well, especially when you're not doing like crazy high reps. If you're doing like sets 8 to 12 or 5 to 10 or 3 to 6, yeah, tonnage is a really helpful concept, so you can use that to take any exercise in your workout times all the weights times the set times the rep. If you're using different weights, then you just do those calculations separately and then add them up together, and that'll tell you the total work per exercise. And if those increase over time, then you know you're working harder. But the question was, what does hard work look like? Well, I'll tell you this. If you measure tonnage and over time it gets harder, the numbers increase on your exercises, especially the compound movements, you're going to hit a point where it does become hard work, because you might have been doing kind of like silly warm-up-ish sets for the first couple weeks or first couple months, but eventually you're going to start pushing weights and reps that are more stimulative, and that doesn't mean you're going to plateau. It means you're going to actually start getting better results. Okay, so if those increase over time, it has to get to the point where you are working hard. All right, so that's a great tool that keeps in mind that you're working harder over time, whereas this is to assess how hard each set is. You don't have to use this on each exercises. It's best used on the big three because of the safety concern of, racking the bench or getting pinned under a squat. On the deadlift, there's less safety concern, but still, it's very helpful for those big three powerlifting exercises. So not only does hard work need to be measured, but hard work produces results. So one of the ways that you know that you're working hard, and this is what hard work looks like, hard work is the level of work that produces results. So if you get changes on the scale and to how your physique looks over time, that's results. If it's simply that your bench press went from 150 for a double to 195 for a double, well, you know that you were working hard enough over whatever period of time that took to get a 45-pound increase on the bench press for the same number of reps. Now, quickly going back to reps in reserve, that doesn't mean you did the same level of intensity, right? Because you could have done a really clean 195 for a double and a really shaky 150 for a double. And then that means it's actually even better than a 45-pound improvement, but that's just a little bit more nuanced in there. Either way, hard work is the level of work that produces results. That's one of the things that it looks like. Now, there's also the element of discomfort. So hard work is not only something that must be measured, something that produces results, but it is something that gives you some discomfort. There's some part of you, again, going back to that base nature of man, that says, I don't really want to do this, or you're a little bit nervous before doing it, or if it's a PR attempt, you're worried you're not going to make it. Maybe you've come home from a 10-hour shift doing manual labor, and you're thinking, I had squats written down today. I shouldn't skip squats again for the umpteenth time, but I don't really want to do those 3 sets and then eat and go to bed. You know what? If you just suffer through it and do like one exercise after a 10 or a 12-hour shift, and you do that consistently throughout the week and still give yourself some rest, it would be better to do all your exercises once or twice every week, just a few sets, even on days where you're working, than to not do it at all, or to try and cram all your stuff into like 1 or 2 full body days on your 2 to 3 days off if you work 40 hours a week. If you work more like 60 hours a week, it's going to be even harder to cram all your volume into one good rest day, right? And then you can't really relax with your friends and family if you're just focusing on destroying your body, and then now you have to go back to work. So spread out your volume, even if you have demanding jobs. All right, so yes, there's that element of discomfort. Sometimes you're a little bit sick. If it's just a head cold, you're fine to work out. Okay, if you're tired because you didn't sleep that good, just try and do what you can within reason. If you work a tough job, then do something that's manageable, but still, again, produces results, even if it's just a small amount of exercise. Are all those things uncomfortable? Yes, it is. Working out after a shift, uncomfortable. Working out with the sniffles, uncomfortable. Working out when you're tired, it's uncomfortable. Working out, period, it's a little bit uncomfortable. You get a little bit of sweat going, your body temperature rises, you feel tired kind of during and after, but you also get an energy rush during and after, and you're going to sleep better the next night probably because of it. So it's not as simple as it taxes your body. It also rejuvenates your body on the same day and the days after. So that's why there's that idea of exercise to get in shape, be healthier, and live longer, right? Anyone can quote that back to you. That's just basic common sense. So even though it's discomfort, again, it's good for you in the long run. You spend some energy now to have more energy later, right? So hard work looks like this. It's something that produces results. It's something that can be measured. It brings forth an element of discomfort. You kind of don't want to do it. You don't really want to push it harder than last time, but you know you need to get results. Okay, so it makes you uncomfortable at some point, even though it's fun. Even if you do it for a living like I do as a personal trainer, okay, there's still that element of challenge and sacrifice. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be, you know, what your whole day revolves around, but you do still need to make sacrifices in order to make gains. All right, so that's what it looks like. Now there's 3 poor indicators of hard work, intensity, you know, a good workout, that I want to warn you guys of, especially the beginners watching this video who this is more oriented towards. There are 3 things you should watch out for, especially if you hear people talk about it on YouTube Fitness or you go to a fitness class at a gym. They'll say these 3 things, and you know what? They're really not great indicators of true quality hard work, I would say. Yeah, we're about quality here at Smart Simple Fit, not just quantity, okay? So the 3 worst ways to tell if you're working hard is the following. You get a burn or a pump, okay? That's really not that helpful, okay? This is dependent on rep range and not so much hard work. And here's why. So if you're doing a set of 3 with your 5 rep max on bench, it's hard. That's hard. Those are heavy reps. They're moving slowly. Okay, the bar speed is not going to be very quick. And by the end of that, yes, you did a stimulative set that is going to push progression for strength and hypertrophy. But just because you did that doesn't mean you're going to feel this crazy burn or the pump. And the reasons why is that the length of time that the set lasts, the duration, is relatively short, especially compared to something like running up a hill or doing sprints or something like that, or doing burpees, right? These things produce a lot of, they require a lot of force production, but they last longer than a set of 3 on a bench press. And so when your set's only lasting 15, 20, 30 seconds, you don't really feel that burn, but when it's 40 seconds, a minute 20, yeah, you get a lot of burn, okay? That's just a product of the exercise lasting longer, more lactic acid, and therefore you get that burning sensation in the muscles or a pump, right? If you're doing biceps, a set of 20 produces more pump than a set of 10, but a set of 10 could possibly be higher quality reps if the technique's better versus just throwing it around 20 times. And you're ultimately going to get better strength gains out of that set of 10, especially if the set of 20 is not the true failure, right? It's been studied plenty of times that people, when are giving their reps in reserve, their estimation, their RPE, they're off by like 5 reps, 6 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps. So a set of 20 where they think it's hard and they stop, they could have done 10 more reasonably. Yeah. But because it burns, they think, I felt the burn, I feel the pump. Oh yeah, it's hurting a little bit, so I better stop. And that goes back to, again, comfort being in the natural state of man. The craving for comfort. So the second one would be sweating or your body temperature increasing, you're feeling hot. So those are not really good indicators because, I mean, for obvious reasons, it's partly dependent on your clothing and climate. So if you're in a space with no air conditioning in July and you're wearing a long sleeve shirt and sweatpants and you're like trying to do deadlifts and squats, I mean, you're gonna sweat more arbitrarily, right, than in the winter and you've got t-shirt and shorts and no socks on. You're not going to sweat as much on that winter workout. Same exercise, right? Same exercise, same relative intensity, just because there's less heat. Okay, that's very simple. So it can't just be, oh, I'm gonna feel warm, I'm gonna get a sweat, and yeah, that's just really not a good way to do it. Again, going back to that set of 3 on the bench press, you could do 5 of those, right? 5 of those sets of 3 with perhaps various levels of weight, like 3 with the same weight, a couple back off sets, and you're not really going to sweat very much. You're not going to raise your body temperature that much. You're going to sweat a little bit, but 5 sets of 3, again, those are short sets. They're not going to produce a lot of heat in your body because they don't last very long. And so if you're doing something instead like jumping jacks or burpees, yeah, it's going to produce more sweat because it's more full body. You're burning perhaps more calories, and That's great if that's your goal, but really exercise, especially resistance training, it's not really made to be a calorie burner. It's made to build muscle and strength. Okay, so do your cardio with your cardio and keep your weight training as weight training. Don't do weight training as cardio. All right, so just because you're getting hot and you're sweating doesn't mean you're working hard. It could also mean that you're not resting long enough. You're just jumping from exercise to exercise or putting everything in a circuit when you could have just taken a little bit extra rest. So, instead of giving yourself 30 or 45 seconds between squats, give yourself 3 minutes and you just see how much harder you can push yourself. It's ultimately that mechanical work, going back to tonnage, right? Reps times sets times weight, okay? That's the ultimate driver of progress. So just because you cut rest short doesn't really mean that you're working hard. And last but not least, feeling out of breath. So on a similar note to that last point, if you're huffing and puffing a little bit, could just be because your cardio is not very good. Or again, you're not resting long enough, or you're just cramming too many exercises into a workout and you're not doing them really with like focus and good technique. You're just kind of throwing things around, just swinging your body around, just doing whatever looks cool. You're on your phone, you're not really paying attention, and then you're just kind of lightly getting out of breath and you think it's hard work. Well, you don't have to really get that out of breath. A deadlift or a squat will certainly make you somewhat out of breath, but again, if your goal lifting weights is to feel out of breath, there's plenty of silly ways to pick it up with bad technique to make yourself out of breath that aren't actually all that productive for your specific muscles, for that movement or your strength level. So put your technique and rest as a priority above sweating and being out of breath. And as for the pump, yeah, when you do higher rep sets, you can expect to feel more burn and more pump. It's not a bad thing. It's not bad to feel the burn, but ultimately it can't be the thing that tells you you're working hard. It's not really measurable. All right, so I hope you guys learned something there today. I'm going to have more videos coming out later this month. Probably next week sometime, I'm going to make a video on creating the basic skeleton of a program where you look at the 6 main movement patterns. So that should be a good one when it comes out. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. Hope you guys learned something, and take care.